Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, my group member and I will discuss about the two main points that relate to the occupational safety and health. Those points are roles of occupational safety and health legal requirement in business management, and next is the Occupational Safety and Health Act in Malaysia and its silent feature. Okay, before that, I introduce myself. My name is Rohakimi bin Rosdi, and the others members are Ridwan bin Ibrahim and Suhail Azmin bin Rosman. Okay. For the roles of occupational safety and health legal requirement in the business management, there are several categories that has been discussed in the business management, which are policy, organizing, planning and implementation, evaluation, and finally action for improvement. Okay, so the first element is the policy. This is the basis of the occupational safety and health management system, and this is to give the clear direction for the organization. So for the policy, there are two main category that two main requirement that need to be followed, which are occupational safety and health policy, and the second is employee participation. So those two elements need to be considered to the organization in order to follow the occupational safety and health requirement in the business management. So for the second elements in the requirement of occupational safety and health in the management system is the organizing. In this section, in the organizing section, there are three elements that need to be focused. There are three elements that need to be focused. There are responsibility, accountability, and authority. In this section, also describe about the competence, training, and awareness among the employees and employer. Okay, for the competency, the organization should be considered to the competency requirement for those person who are the management representative, the performing hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control, which is hierarchy, to the person that perform exposure assessment, those who are performing audit, performing behavioral observation, performing incident investigation, performing high risk tasks, and finally the others who may require competency in carrying out their work safely. Okay, for the training, there are several steps that need to be approached, which the first step is determine the training that relate to the organization. Second is prepare the training plan. Third is deliver the training, and finally evaluation of the training.
Alright, I want to add something. It is about how we can plan and implement the OS into a business management system. First, we can conduct an initial review. This initial review of the workplace can help us to get the information need to perform a best or gap analysis by the employer, which the assistance of competent person, consultation with employers and their representative. The purpose of this review is to assure as far practicable that all OS management system issue and identify, so that they can be assessed and prioritized for the further action. And next, the organization also need to have its own objective. The clear objective of the organization can determine what program and service the organization need to offer, and the OS objective should be specified to the organization and appropriate to according to its size and nature of the activity. Objective need to be specified, measurable, time-bound activity which employee develop for the purpose of improving the working condition. And next, the HIRAC, which is the hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Hazard identification need to determine all source, condition, and situation at the workplace with potential for harm in terms of human injury or death or ill or damaged property, and also environment damage. About the risk assessment, the organization need to estimate it and evaluate the level of the risk associated with the identified hazard. The result of this assessment need to be considered for the decision making and for determine control. And also appropriate risk control should be established and implemented according to the level of the risk identified. And also, and next, for the emergency prevention and preparedness, and also the response. This organization should check the potential accident, emergency response needed, development plan, procedure, and also process to cope with them, test its plan response, and seek how we can improve the effectiveness of the response. When developing the emergency plan, it's a good idea to look at a wide variety of potential emergency that could occur in the workplace. And next, how we can manage the change. Manage the change process should include consideration on the issue related to whether there are change in hazard, risk, and also control. When new OS procedure and process are required to be implemented, management should ensure their effectiveness to the employee or the person, and also they need to be informed of the change before the changes are implemented. And for the procurement, the organization should establish a document procedure for control the process of procurement. The knowledge of all regulatory requirement, code of practice related to the acquisition, use, storage, and disposal of procured item and service entering the facility are essential to understand. And finally, the arrangement need to be established and maintained to ensure the organization safe and health requirement, or at least equivalent, are applied to contractor and their employees. There are different types of contractor that may require specific safety and health arrangement. For example, long-term contract employee, vendor, and also for the construction work that have their own contract.
Next, my name is Suhail Azmin. I will continue this discussion with explaining about evaluation. So we need to evaluate our organization to make a safe plan. So there are many things that we can evaluate. The first one is performance monitoring and measurement. Performance monitoring and measurements are important in managing safety and health issues in the organization. They provide feedback on what is happening so that we can shape appropriate action to respond to change circumstances. Example of the information that we can get is what is happening around us, how well are we doing, what has happened so far, and the warning of impending danger, so that we can make suitable action to avoid it. So the arrangement for performance monitoring and measurement should be based on organization, identify hazard and risks. the commitment in the safety and health policy and the safety and health objective. Okay, so it also need to be support the organization evaluation process, including the management review. Okay, so the performance monitoring and measurement should be used as means of determining the extent to which safety and health policy and objective are being implemented and risks are controlled. And it also need to be recorded. Okay, next for our evaluation is by incident investigation. So the arrangement including document procedure should be established, implement and maintain for incident investigation, which will identify any failures in the safety and health. So any document that relate to the incident that happens will be documented for the investigation to be done. Okay, so all work-related fatalities, injury, disabilities, ill health, disease and near miss should be notified to the employer or relevant authorities in accordance to national law. Okay, so in order to prevent recurrence, there are need for corrective action, opportunity for preventive tasks, opportunities for continual improvement. So a prepared person also should be identified and informed for him to take corrective action based on the recommendation. So it need to be handled by a trustworthy investigator. Okay, next, evaluation can be made to audit. Okay, an audit program and procedure should be developed, which includes defining the criteria of auditor competency, the audit scope, audit methodology and reporting. So an audit program should be planned, established, implemented and maintained by the organization based on the results of risk assessment of the organization activities, such as providing the resource required for successful implementation, or establishing and maintain the selection, training and registering of the organization auditor. Okay, next, they also can planning, coordinating and scheduling of audit. Okay, so the audit includes an evaluation of the organization policy, employee participation, responsibility, competence, and many more. Okay, next for our evaluation is management review. Management review is handled by the top management to the employer, to the employee or workers. They can be made at meetings or other communication means. Partial management reviews of the performance of the safety and health can be held at more frequent intervals. They can ask the workers for their recommendation or any sort of information regarding their machine and work environment, so that can be improved. Okay, next. Okay, so after evaluation, we can make action for improvement. Okay, so what can we do is preventive and corrective actions based on the evaluation that we have been made by audits, monitoring and measurement, review. We can identify and analyzing the root cause of any non-conformities with relevant applicable national laws. Okay, next, we can review any potential problems and deciding appropriate control measure to stop the problem from occurring. Next, we can then make a response and timing of such action appropriate to the nature and scale, and then we can complete and document the plan. Okay, next, after that, we can do a continual improvement by analyze continual improvement element based on the following information. For example, safety and health objective and of the organization. So the result of hazard identification and risk management, the result of performance monitoring and measurements. They also the outcome and the management review, and many more that we can work out by analyze the potential hazard that can happen at our organization. Okay, next, we can also exploring opportunities for improvement, such as from the data or that have been recorded, such as reduction of the resource, reduction of ill health, reduction in workplace incident, increase in employer participation, and increase in hazard reporting. So we can check how this happened and what caused it. Okay, next, we can create an action plan. So based on the opportunities, then define responsibilities and resources to be made available for implementing the plan. Okay, next, after making the plan, we should communicate action plan to the relevant person, such as the higher up of the company. Okay, next, after that, we monitor the implementation plan. Okay, after we have made, so we need to monitor so that the workers will follow it. So the safety and health process and performance of the organization should be compared with others for benchmarking in order to improve safety and health performance of the organization. So for example, we can compare it with by a year result as measured by failing rates of all work-related fatalities, injuries, disabilities, ill health, disease and near miss. Next, we can achieve by steady or improved result, but with fewer resource, because the safety and health itself improve and effort is better target. Okay, so next we can see the situation that move the culture of the whole organization across a threshold into a new state of effectiveness and efficiency, often described as breakthrough performance. Okay, next.
Let's move to the next point, which is Occupational Safety and Health Act in Malaysia and its silent feature. Okay, for this point, we already choose two acts that we want to focus on, which are FMA 1967 and OSHA 1994. Okay, first we gonna evaluate or discuss about the FMA 1967, which is stand for Factories and Machinery Act 1967, that was gazetted by the government as a legislative arrangement to define a minimum descriptive arrangement to the comply by employer of occupy of a workplace. Okay, for the objective of this act is to provide the control for the control for the factories with respect to matter relating to the safety, health and welfare of person. Okay, for the salient, there are several aspects that has been covered, which is the preliminary, safety, health and welfare. For the third is person in charge and certification of competency, notification of accidents, dangerous occurrence or danger disease, and finally notice of occupational of factory and registration and use of machinery. Okay, for the preliminary, for the first part, it consists of interpretation of factory, interpretation of machinery, appointment of officers and licensed persons, power of officers, and finally obstruction and offence. For the part 2 of the salient is the safety, health and welfare. So in these sections there are several topics that has been discussed. For example, provision relating to safety, person exposed to explosive, inflammable, construction of machinery and so on.
Okay, next let me explain part 3 of the FMA 1967 regulation. Okay, part 3 is about person in charge and certificate of competency. Okay, first, training and supervision of inexperienced workers. Okay, so inexperienced workers should be supervised or monitored by higher up as to not make a mistake or danger others workers. Okay, so they need to be on observe around the clock. Okay, next, if chief inspector may make orders. So the chief inspector is authorized to make any order or set any condition he seems necessary. So that means the chief inspector has powers to make a necessary comment that deemed necessary on the situation for the sake of safety of the operators of the machine. Okay, next is young person. So the young person refers to a person that age below 16 years old are not allowed in the proximity or managing or attending any machine at the workplace except trainees from government. Even from the government institution, they need to be at least above 14 years old. Okay, next.
Okay, I want to add another provision about this FMA, the part 4, which is state about the notification of accident, dangerous occurrence and dangerous diseases. Firstly, the accident that need to and dangerous occurrence that need to be reported is the accident that cause loss of life or seriously bodily injury that take 4 day absent, at least 4 day absent from work. And next is the serious property damage or any incident that occurred at the workplace. Next is about the notification of industrial diseases. A medical practitioner it's important to report to the chief inspector if he came across any diseases. And then next is about the investigation and inquiry. An investigation can be conducted and reported by the inspector to his superior for further action. For the part 5, it's about the notice of occupant of factory and registration and use of the machinery. The operation of the factory, no one can operate the factory without the permission from the inspector unless he has served the inspector notice 1 month earlier. And also every person who undertake any building operation or work of engineering construction cannot late more than 7 days from the commencement of this operation served on the inspection written notice in prescribed form. Mean that he cannot mean that the building operation should be 7 days earlier from the commencement, and the exemption can be given to the work that can complete less than 6 weeks without machinery or without machinery use. And finally, about the installation of the machinery, that all the machinery that require installment need to have permission from the inspector first.
Okay, next, the last part of the FMA regulation, part 6 is offence. Okay, so occupier of the workplace, owner, employer who contravenes the provision of this act should be guilty of an offence. So after comes offence, there is penalty for the offender. Okay, a person who contravenes any provision of this act should be guilty. So after guilty, there will be a penalty. For example, of penalty is a fines of any amount of ringgit Malaysia, I mean any amount of price, or penalty of jail. Depends on the offence. Okay, after the offence come the compound. Chief inspector, deputy chief inspector and senior inspector can compound the maximum 50% of the penalty Okay, so the detailed procedure and amount are explained in the Director General Circular Bill 04 of 2009. Okay, that means after the penalty, they can also be compound. So the penalty will be heavy. Okay, that's all.
Okay, now we move to the next act, which is Occupational Safety and Health Legislation 1994. This act was to provide the legislative framework for promotion, stimulation, and encouraging high standards of safety and health at work. So for the silent provisions, there are several factor that has been discussed, which are general duties, regulation, code of practice, enforcement, and liability. Finally, penalty. In the first silent provision, which is general duties, this is consists of the duties of employers, which have several sections in it, under it, and duties of self-employed person, duties of employees, that consists of several sections, and duties of designers, manufacturers, importers, and suppliers, which has 2 sections under this point. So the second is regulations. Regulation provide a wide regulation making power to the minister. Regulation would normally formulate on the basis of proposal submitted by the National Councils of Occupational Safety and Health or the Director General of Occupational Safety and Health after consultation with the tripartite organisation, which are employees, employer, and the government.
Okay, next I think I want to add another provision, which is the code of practice. The regulation can be added or supplemented by approved code of practice. This regulation has a special legal status. This regulation can be added when it is needed. The minister can approve or gazette this industry code of practice with the recommendation by the council or director general in order to complying the act. And this promulgation of code of practice can be initiated by whether the industry or government or other interested parties. And next is enforcement and liability. The officer that was appointed by the government can carry out any enforcement regarding the act of occupational safety and health, and at any time he or she can examine or inspect any workplace according to his certificate or authorization. If she or he find out any controversy of one of the provision of the health of the act related to the legislation, he or she can take an appropriate action under the act.
Okay, next is penalty. Okay, so a person who contravenes any provisions of this act or any regulation made thereunder shall be guilty of an offence and shall on condition be liable to a fine or to imprisonment or to both as per table below as a penalty. Okay, that means people who are found guilty to make an offence will be penalty by a fine or a jail. Okay, example of offence is not comply with the notice of improvement. So this kind of offence will get a penalty of 50,000 ringgit Malaysia of fines or 5 years of jail or both. And then next example of offence is not comply with the requirement for safety and health organisation. So the penalty for this is a lot smaller than before. There is RM 5,000 of fines or 6 months of jail. There are many kind of offence and different type of penalty that are given, depends on how heavy the offence is. Okay, that's all for us. I think with this we will end our discussion. Thank you.